Hey everyone, and welcome back to Chat Like a Native. You know, speaking English confidently can be a real challenge, especially for those of you who are kind of in that intermediate stage.
Yeah, it's like you've got the basics down,
Right.
but then there's this hurdle
Oh, yeah.
of actually
Speaking it out in the real world.
Exactly.
And that's what we're diving deep into today, that anxiety so many people feel
It's so common.
when they have to actually speak English.
It really is like, it doesn't matter what your background is or your level.
Yeah,
It's almost like a universal experience for language learners.
it is. And it can be so frustrating
Yeah.
because you know you're putting in the work, you're studying, you're seeing progress,
Right.
but then that moment comes.
Yeah.
You have to actually use it, and it's like, oh my gosh, what happens?
It's almost like your brain just goes blank.
Totally.
You know, all that knowledge is there, but
Yeah.
it's like hidden behind this wall of anxiety.
So where does that anxiety even come from?
Well, I think a big part of it is this fear of making mistakes.
Oh, for sure.
Like, we're so worried about,
Yeah.
sounding silly or being judged
Yeah.
or even just not being understood.
And I think sometimes that fear can be so intense
Oh, absolutely.
that it actually stops us from speaking at all.
Exactly.
Like, we avoid those situations completely.
Yeah. And it's ironic because
Yeah.
the more we avoid speaking, the less we practice.
Right.
And the more anxious we become.
It's like this vicious cycle.
It really is.
So how can we break free from that?
Well, I think the first step is to kind of reframe our whole perspective on mistakes.
Oh, that's huge.
Instead of seeing them as failures,
Yeah.
what if we started viewing them as opportunities to learn and grow?
Like those debug messages you get when you're coding.
Exactly.
They're not saying you're a bad coder.
No.
They're helping you find the problem and fix it.
Exactly. It's feedback.
Yeah.
It's valuable information that can help you improve.
So the more mistakes we make, correct, the better we become at speaking English.
Absolutely. It's like anything else in life. The more you practice, the better you get.
So true. And I think it's also helpful to think of language learning as a journey.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's not a race. It's not about reaching some finish line where
Right.
you have to be perfect to succeed.
Yeah.
It's about continuous exploration and growth.
I like that continuous exploration growth. Tell me more about that.
So imagine you're traveling to a new place.
Okay.
You don't expect to know everything about it instantly, right?
No.
You're open to new experiences.
Right.
You're willing to get lost sometimes.
Yeah.
And you know that every step you take,
Yeah.
even the wrong ones, is part of the adventure.
That is such a great way to look at it.
And it's the same with language learning.
So instead of getting hung up on being perfect,
Yeah.
we should be focusing on enjoying the process of learning
Exactly.
mistakes and all.
Exactly. And, it's not just about memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary words.
Right. It's about
It's about experiencing the world
Yeah.
through a different lens.
connecting with people from
Yeah.
different cultures,
Mhm.
expanding your horizons.
Absolutely.
It's like learning a whole new way to see and experience the world.
It really is.
And when we look at it that way,
Yeah.
the journey becomes so much more enjoyable and rewarding,
Absolutely.
even when we hit those bumps in the road.
And, speaking of bumps in the road,
Yeah.
it's important to acknowledge that, speaking anxiety can manifest in different ways.
Oh, for
So
sure.
for some people, it's this general feeling of unease
Yeah.
in any speaking situation.
Right.
But for others, it might be triggered by specific situations.
Like what?
Like giving a presentation
Yeah.
or ordering food at a restaurant.
Ordering food?
Yeah, anything where you have to kind of put yourself out there.
Yeah. So how do we deal with those specific anxiety triggers?
Well, one really effective technique is preparation.
Oh,
If you know you're going to be in a situation that typically makes you anxious, take some time to plan what you're going to say and practice it beforehand.
so like if I'm dreading ordering food at a restaurant,
Yeah,
I could practice ordering my usual dishes at home.
exactly.
Out loud, maybe even in front of a mirror.
Absolutely. Anything to get comfortable with the language and the situation.
Okay.
You can even write down some key phrases or vocabulary words
Yeah.
on a note card and refer to them if you need to.
And I bet even just the act of preparing can help reduce anxiety.
Oh, absolutely, because you're taking control of the situation
Right.
instead of letting it control you.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point. That feeling of control can make a huge difference
It really can.
in managing our anxiety.
Yeah, because when we feel prepared,
Right.
we're less likely to get flustered or overwhelmed in the moment.
Speaking of feeling overwhelmed,
Yeah.
I think it's important to talk about those moments when anxiety really hits hard.
Yeah.
Like right before a big presentation or a job interview.
Absolutely.
What are some techniques we can use in those situations?
Well, those are the moments when those classic relaxation techniques
Oh, yeah.
can really come in handy.
Okay, like what?
Things like deep breathing exercises,
Right.
visualization,
Mhm.
and even positive self-talk.
Okay, so let's unpack those a bit.
Sure.
How does deep breathing actually help with anxiety?
So when we're feeling anxious, our breathing tends to become shallow and rapid,
Yeah.
and that can actually make us feel more stressed and out of control. But
Yeah.
deep breathing helps to slow down our heart rate,
Uh-huh.
calm our nerves,
Right.
and send a signal to our bodies that everything is okay.
So it's like hitting the reset button on our nervous system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a way to interrupt that cycle of anxiety and give ourselves a moment to pause and regain our composure.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about visualization?
So visualization is all about using the power of our imagination
Okay.
to create a positive mental picture.
Okay.
So before a speaking situation that makes you nervous, take a few minutes to close your eyes and imagine yourself in that setting, speaking confidently and successfully.
Okay.
See yourself making eye contact, delivering your message clearly.
So it's like creating a mental movie
Yes,
of ourselves succeeding.
exactly. And the more vivid and detailed you can make that mental picture, the more effective it will be.
Okay, what about positive self-talk?
So our thoughts have a powerful impact on our emotions and our behavior.
Yeah.
When we're feeling anxious, it's easy to get caught in a spiral of negative self-talk,
Oh, yeah.
telling ourselves things like, I'm going to mess up, or everyone is going to judge me.
Guilty.
Right, and those thoughts just fuel our anxiety.
It's like my inner critic takes over.
Yeah.
And I start focusing on all the things that could go wrong.
We all do it from time to time.
Yeah.
But the key is to become aware of those negative thoughts
Right.
and consciously replace them with positive affirmations.
Like what?
Like tell yourself things like, I'm well prepared, I
Yeah.
have something valuable to say, or I can do this.
I love that it's like training our brains
Yes.
to be more supportive and encouraging instead of critical and judgmental.
Exactly. And the more we practice positive self-talk, the more natural it becomes and the more confident we feel.
This is all so empowering.
Uh,
It feels like we're starting to gain some real control over this speaking anxiety.
Yeah. And one thing that always surprises me is how much being a good listener
Oh,
can actually improve our speaking skills.
tell me more about that connection.
When we listen attentively,
Right.
we're not just passively receiving information,
Yeah.
we're actively engaging with the language,
Yeah.
absorbing new vocabulary, noticing different sentence structures,
Right.
even picking up subtle nuances of pronunciation.
It's like our brains are constantly learning and adapting just by listening.
Exactly. It's like we're immersing ourselves in the language even when we're not the ones speaking.
And active listening also helps us understand the context
Yes.
of conversations, right?
Absolutely.
Which lets us respond in a way that makes sense.
Exactly. And feel more connected to the discussion.
So by actively listening to others,
Yeah.
we're not only improving our comprehension,
Uh-huh.
but also indirectly boosting our speaking confidence.
Absolutely. It's a win-win situation.
I love that. And, if you're looking for ways to improve both your listening and speaking skills,
Yeah.
I've heard that joining a language exchange group can be fantastic.
Oh, absolutely.
I've always been a little intimidated to actually join one.
I know a lot of people feel that way, but it's actually a lot of fun.
What's it like?
So you basically partner up with someone who's learning your native language,
Okay.
and you spend time speaking in both languages.
So I'll get to practice my English
Yeah!
and help someone else learn my language.
Exactly.
That sounds amazing.
It's a great way to make new friends from different cultures, too.
I bet it is.
And you'd be surprised how much you can learn about your own language
Yeah.
by teaching it to someone else.
I'm definitely going to look into that.
Yeah.
So we've talked about mindset,
Yeah.
preparation relaxation techniques,
Right.
the importance of listening,
Yeah.
and even the benefits of joining a language exchange group.
It's all connected.
Are there any other strategies or exercises
Oh, there's so many.
that can help us specifically build our speaking confidence and fluency?
But one that I always recommend is the daily speaking challenge.
Okay, fantastic.
It's super simple, but it can make a huge difference.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
The challenge is to commit to speaking English for at least 10 minutes every single day.
Even if we don't have anyone to talk to?
Yes, you can talk to yourself, describe your surroundings, narrate your activities,
Oh, wow.
or even record voice memos on your phone.
Okay.
The key is to get those vocal cords working and to get comfortable with the sound of your own voice speaking English.
I love that it's like we're turning everyday moments into opportunities
Exactly.
for language practice.
And you'd be surprised how much you can learn by simply talking to yourself.
Like what?
You can experiment with different vocabulary words, try out new grammar structures,
Fine.
and even practice your pronunciation without feeling self-conscious.
That's such a great point. And speaking of practicing pronunciation,
Yeah.
are there any specific tips you have for making our English sound more natural?
One of the best ways to sound more natural is to pay attention to the rhythm and intonation of spoken English.
Oh, okay.
Listen carefully to how native speakers stress certain words and phrases,
Right.
and try to imitate those patterns in your own speech.
So it's not just about pronouncing the words correctly.
No.
It's also about using the right emphasis and rhythm.
Exactly. Think of it like music.
Okay.
If you play all the notes correctly, but you don't get the rhythm right, the song won't sound quite right.
That's a great analogy.
So rhythm and intonation are key to sounding natural.
So how can we develop a better sense of those things?
One of the best ways is to listen to a lot of authentic English audio.
Like what?
Whether it's podcasts, movies, TV shows, or audiobooks,
Okay.
pay attention to how native speakers use their voices to convey different meanings and emotions.
So it's like training our ears to pick up those subtle nuances of spoken English.
Exactly. And the more you listen, the more natural those rhythms and intonations will become in your own speech.
I'm definitely going to make a conscious effort to listen more attentively to those details. What about vocabulary? Are there any specific types of words or phrases that can help us sound more fluent and natural?
One area that's often overlooked is idioms and slang.
Oh, yeah?
These are expressions that don't always have a literal meaning,
Right.
but they're used all the time in everyday conversation.
Yeah, they're so colorful and expressive.
Exactly. And learning some common idioms and slang expressions can really help you sound more like a native speaker.
But they can also be confusing if you don't know their meaning.
That's true. So it's important to learn them in context.
Okay.
Don't just memorize lists of idioms.
Right.
Instead, try to notice how they're used in movies, TV shows, books, and conversations.
Okay.
And when you come across a new idiom, try to use it in a sentence right away.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
It's all about actively using the language.
Yes.
We're learning rather than just passively absorbing it.
Exactly. And remember, don't be afraid to experiment with idioms and slang. The more you use them, the more confident you'll become,
Okay.
and the more natural your English will sound.
It's like we're adding more color and personality
Oh,
to our
gosh, yeah.
language.
And speaking of adding personality, one of the most important things you can do to improve your speaking is to simply be yourself.
What do you mean by that?
Don't try to be someone you're not.
Okay.
Don't try to force yourself to speak in a certain way or use a certain accent.
Right.
Embrace your own unique voice and personality.
So it's like we're giving ourselves permission
Yeah.
to be authentic,
Exactly.
even when we're speaking a different language.
Authenticity is key to connecting with others
Yeah.
and expressing yourself effectively.
I love that it's like we're bringing our whole selves
Yes.
to the conversation.
Exactly. And that's
Great.
what makes language learning so rewarding.
Yeah.
It's not just about acquiring a new skill.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with others and sharing our unique perspectives with the world.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I'm feeling so inspired to keep practicing and keep pushing myself outside of my comfort zone.
That's the spirit. And remember, the journey to fluency is a marathon, not a sprint.
Oh, so true.
There will be ups and downs, challenges and triumphs.
Yeah.
But if you stay committed to the process, embrace the learning curve, and never stop exploring, you'll be amazed at how far you can go.
Those are words to live by. Well, we've covered so much ground today, and I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear more. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll delve deeper into specific techniques for managing anxiety in those high-pressure speaking situations. Stay tuned.
So, we've talked a lot about understanding that speaking anxiety and kind of, shifting our mindset.
Yeah, it's like the long game.
Right.
But what about in the moment?
Yeah, exactly.
Like when you're about to give a presentation or you're about to go into a work meeting in English
Absolutely.
and your heart's racing.
Yeah.
Your palms are sweating.
Yeah, it's like all that good advice
Yeah.
just kind of flies out the window.
It does.
And you're hit with this wave of panic.
So what do we do?
Well, this is where those relaxation techniques
Okay, yeah.
that we talked about become your best friend.
Right. Deep breathing, visualization.
Exactly.
Felt kind of basic before, but
I know they seem so simple,
yeah.
but trust me, they work.
But how?
So deep breathing when you're anxious, your breath gets all shallow and fast, and that just amps up the stress.
So by taking those slow, deep breaths,
Yeah.
We're kind of telling our body
Exactly.
to chill out.
It's like hitting the override button on your nervous system.
Okay, I like that.
You know, breathe in for a count of 4, hold for 4, out for 4,
Okay.
and magic starts to happen.
I'm feeling more relaxed already just thinking about it.
Good.
What about visualization?
So visualization, this is where you close your eyes and you really see yourself in that situation.
Okay, so if I'm about to give a presentation,
Yeah.
I'm picturing myself rocking it.
Exactly. Imagine the audience engaged, nodding along as you speak confidently.
But what if I visualize messing up?
Okay, that's a good point. So that's where the detail comes in.
Okay.
Don't just see a vague good outcome.
Right.
Really visualize yourself handling the tough parts well.
Okay.
Like, let's say you stumble over a word.
Mm-hmm.
Picture yourself laughing it off and continuing smoothly.
Okay, so it's like a mental rehearsal
Exactly.
for those potential hiccups.
And don't forget positive self-talk.
Right. I've got this.
Yes, instead of I'm going to bomb this, it's
Oh.
I'm prepared, my ideas are worth sharing.
Love it.
You become your own hype person.
Yeah, and this is all before we even open our mouths to speak.
Right.
What about during the actual speaking? Are there any in-the-moment hacks?
Yeah, so a big one is being mindful of your body language.
Yeah.
You know, when we're anxious, we tend to close up, slouching, avoiding eye contact, fidgeting.
Guilty of all of those.
But it works the other way around, too.
What do you mean?
If you act confident, you might start to feel more confident.
Oh, interesting. So it's like fake it till you make it.
More like act it till you become it.
I like that.
And your voice is a huge part of this, too.
Okay.
You know, anxiety makes us speak fast and high-pitched, all jumbled.
Yeah, like a chipmunk on fast forward.
Exactly. So instead, try to channel your inner narrator, slow down, enunciate clearly, and project your voice.
Okay.
It sounds more confident, and it gives you time to think.
That's a good point. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But what about when we do make a mistake?
Yeah.
Because it's inevitable it's going to happen.
It is?
And I feel like my brain just goes into panic mode.
I know. It feels like a spotlight shines down on you.
It does.
But chances are the mistake is way more noticeable to you than to anyone else.
Really?
Our brains tend to exaggerate those things.
Okay.
So if you make a small error, acknowledge it briefly, correct yourself if needed, and move on.
So don't dwell on it.
Don't dwell on it. Just keep going.
Like a speed bump, not a roadblock.
Exactly. And, you know, something a lot of people overlook is the role of the audience.
Wait, you mean it's not just all about me and my anxiety?
It's easy to think that way, but no.
Okay.
Think about it. If you picture the audience as judging you, waiting for you to slip up, of course you'll be terrified.
Yeah. That's kind of my default setting.
So what if you tried to reframe that?
How?
What if you viewed them as curious, wanting to hear what you have to say?
Okay.
You know, sending them good vibes can actually help you relax.
Wow. I never thought of it that way. So it's not just about managing my anxiety.
Right.
It's also about shifting how I perceive the people I'm talking to.
Exactly. And all of this applies to big presentations, sure.
Right.
But what about those everyday chats? You know, those casual conversations?
They feel less scary, but I still get nervous sometimes.
It's the same principle, just scaled down.
Okay.
You know, deep breaths can help before you jump into a conversation. Positive self-talk is key when you feel that deer in the headlights freeze coming up.
Right. And reminding myself that people want to connect, not judge me,
Absolutely.
can make a huge difference.
And remember active listening.
Yeah.
When you're truly engaged in what the other person is saying, it takes the pressure off you to be performing perfectly.
That's so true. It's like shifting the focus outward instead of just being stuck in my own anxious head.
Exactly. And you know, something we often forget is that speaking is about more than just words.
Oh.
It's about body language, tone of voice, even the energy you bring to the interaction.
So even if my grammar isn't perfect,
Yeah.
if I'm enthusiastic and genuinely interested in the conversation,
Yes,
that comes across.
absolutely. People connect with authenticity more than with flawless grammar. So relax, be yourself, and let your personality shine through.
I love that. Okay, we've covered a ton of strategies for managing anxiety, both in the moment and long term.
Yeah.
But all of this takes practice,
Yeah.
right? So what keeps us going when those inevitable setbacks happen?
That's where motivation comes in.
Okay.
And the key is to make it sustainable, you know. Don't expect to go from 0 to hero overnight.
Right.
Set realistic goals.
So instead of like become fluent this month,
Yeah,
it's have one short conversation in English each day.
exactly. And then celebrate those wins, no matter how small.
Okay.
Told a funny story, nailed that coffee order high five.
It's like we're training our brains to associate speaking English with positive feelings, not just dread.
Exactly. And speaking of positive vibes, find your people a language exchange partner, a supportive friend, online communities.
Having that encouragement can make such a difference.
It's like we're all cheerleaders for each other's language journeys.
I love that.
And don't underestimate the power of positive feedback from others. It fuels the motivation to keep going.
This has been so encouraging. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit
Yeah.
for tackling speaking anxiety. But before we wrap up,
Yeah.
is there one final piece of wisdom
Sure.
you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Remember, the journey to fluency is unique for everyone. There's no one right way to do it.
Okay.
Be patient with yourself, find what works for you, and never stop exploring. You've got this.
Such inspiring words. We've covered so much today on Chat Like a Native. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up with some key takeaways and actionable steps you can start taking today. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Chat Like a Native. I am feeling so much more ready to tackle this whole speaking anxiety thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how just, a few practical tips and a little mindset shift can really change how we approach it, right?
Totally. So before we wrap up today, let's do like a quick recap of those key takeaways.
Okay, so I think the biggest one, honestly, is just remembering that, language learning, especially the speaking part, is a journey.
It is.
It's not a race. You don't have to be perfect.
Oh, so true.
Embrace those mistakes, see them as feedback, and celebrate those little wins along the way.
I love that. And speaking of celebrating, we can't forget about those relaxation techniques.
Oh, yeah, those are crucial.
Deep breathing visualization,
Uh-huh.
positive self-talk.
Like superpowers, honestly.
They really are.
Yeah.
It's like having this secret weapon
Yeah.
to combat those anxious feelings.
And don't forget about preparation, too.
Yeah.
Whether it's, planning for a big presentation or just practicing those everyday phrases.
Right.
Feeling prepared can make a world of difference.
It's like having a roadmap for the conversation,
Exactly.
even if you don't follow it exactly.
And remember what we were talking about with body language?
Yeah.
And using our voice effectively?
Right, like standing tall, making eye contact,
Yes.
slowing down our speech.
All of those things send a message
It does.
to ourselves and to the world that we've got this.
And we can't forget about active listening.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
When we're really engaged in the conversation, the anxiety tends to fade away.
It's like shifting that focus outwards instead of being stuck in our own heads.
Exactly. And lastly, find your people. Connect with other learners, get some support from friends, mentors, online communities.
It makes such a difference.
It does. Having those connections can keep you motivated and inspired on your language journey.
Well said. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation.
It has.
I feel like I have a whole new perspective on speaking anxiety and a bunch of tools to help me overcome it.
I'm so glad to hear that. Remember, every conversation is a chance to learn and grow. Embrace those challenges, celebrate your progress, and never let anxiety hold you back.
Awesome advice. Thanks for joining us on Chanums Tite. Like a native, everyone, we'll see you next time with more tips and strategies for taking your English communication skills to the next level. Keep practicing and keep those conversations flowing.